the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Nissen, and today I am lucky enough to have with me author Michael Jordan. Michael, why don't you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Sure. Just to be clear, Allison, I'm not the Michael Jordan who was today selected by People magazine as the sexiest man alive. But I'll give you my little bit of a life story. I'm a lawyer by training who spent many years in Cleveland, Ohio, and I was always fascinated by thrillers. I enjoy the genre very much, and my first book is both my books are twists on what ifs. I like to take bits of history and say, what if something had turned out differently, or what if this happened? And the Company of Demons is a novel that came about that way, as well as my second book, The Work in Progress, a desperate race.
Well, tell me a little bit about the Company of Demons.
Yeah, sure. It's a very interesting story in real life. Years ago, there was a notorious serial killer in Cleveland, Ohio, known as the Torso Murderer, who brutally killed at least 12 people and left their bodies littered around the city. Elliot Ness of the Untouchables fame left Chicago and moved to Cleveland to take over the police and fire departments. And eventually it fell to Elliot Ness to try to capture the Torso Murderer. And it became a real cat and mouse game. The killer would taunt Elliot Ness about how inept he was, how stupid the police were, catch me if you can. And it affected Elliot Ness badly. He began to drink heavily, his marriage fell apart, and he left Cleveland under a cloud, and his career never recovered. The Torso Murderer, by contrast, disappeared, never apprehended. So in my book, I asked the question, what if the killer might still be out there and return to today for one final act of vengeance? So that's the setup. It's a fun little read, I think, based on a history of what really took place. So it gives us some real depth in terms of looking at the whole situation.
Well, I'm hooked with the whole Elliot Ness thing. When Kevin Costner played Elliot Ness, I'm dating myself, maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, he played Elliot Ness. I was in love with him at that time. So I think that sounds like a really interesting premise to begin your story. Can you tell me what was the hardest part about doing the research?
I think it was going back in time to reconstruct what really took place back in the 30s and 40s in Cleveland. Fortunately, I was not around then myself, but I found people who were, and some people recalled actually living through the days when the Torso Murderer dominated Cleveland's headlines. The parents back then, the common admonition to their children was, you get home before dark or the Torso Murderer is going to find you. And the town was really in an uproar over the entire killings. It was, and it's not surprising. Look at what happens even today with the Boston Strangler or the Ted Bundy situations, the bind, torture, kill serial killer. I mean, they terrorize the community and grip the public's imagination. And that's what happened with the book. So I had to go back and recreate that to convey that realistically. And I went to the library and did a lot of reading on the old Cleveland newspapers and the periodicals of the day, and tried to really get a handle of what was happening at the time, so I could reconstruct that in the book. And then wanted to convey that same sense of fear today. If the killer came back and murders began anew, how would the public react today? What would be the differences? What would be the similarities? Given the fact that we now have cell phones and street lights and a lot of different things that did not exist back in the 30s and 40s.
Well, without giving anything away, what is the biggest difference, do you think?
I think that the biggest difference now is in the forensics. If you go back and look at the analysis of the crime scenes back in the original murder cases years ago, it's just so different. Today we're all used to watching NCIS or CSI, and we see the yellow tape, and we see the people show up with their huge cases and start to do the analysis and the photographs. That didn't happen back then. I mean, ballistics was in its infancy. Fingerprints were not, we're just coming on the scene really. And situations like photographs I've seen of crime scenes, murder scenes, where you would see the dismembered body on the ground, and police officers crouched around the body, and then behind the police officers are members of the public who happened to wander down to take a look-see. So footprints were all over the place. It wasn't the yellow tape up. It was just a very different era. And I think that was the number one thing that jumped out jumped out to me in terms of the differences of murders back in 1940 as opposed to murders in this day and age.
So as a lawyer, did you, I'm going to use the phrase grow up with criminal cases, or did you, or is this a different area of expertise that you have now uncovered?
Totally different from me, Allison. By training, I'm a trial lawyer, but all commercial. I did a lot of work in the healthcare area and nothing criminal. I loved criminal law in law school, but that was the extent of it. So I had to go to school on this, brand new. I was like a student again and learn criminal law credibly, so I can make the story ring true. And fortunately, I have a very good friend who is a sitting judge and handles criminal case on a regular basis. And he was kind of to sit down with me and go through the process so I could reconstruct my book and make it sound authentic. I learned that in the course of doing this, my first novel, it's helpful to reach out to people with expertise and ask them questions. And I was surprised how many people are willing to say, yeah, I'll share my knowledge with you. Here's what would happen in real life, and good luck with your book. And that happened to me on many occasions, and my friend the judge was a prime example.
Well, I love when people help writers, because we often feel as writers that it's a lonely world. We sit with our words all day long, so to speak, and they talk back to us only because we put language to them. And so when we get people that are willing to help share their expertise, that's a really good feeling.
Yeah, it really is gratifying, because you're right. You spend all day sitting at your computer pecking away. And then when you have a chance to have lunch with someone, explain your story, and then they think it's intriguing and are willing to help you out and share their knowledge, it validates what you're doing. And it really helps put it in perspective as well. You can read 1,000 books on criminal law, but not pick up the same nuances as you would spending 1 hour with a judge who really does it day in and day out.
Your book was well received. It seemed to have won a couple of awards, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Allison. I was really fortunate about that. The Florida Writers Association is one. I entered it in the Royal Palm Literary Competition. I won a silver in the thriller suspense category. For my first book, I was just on cloud nine about that. And then to receive the comments from the judges was very helpful as well, to see what they thought were the strengths and weaknesses of the story. I was really happy to win the gold medal in the Florida Book Awards, which was a great acknowledgement. And then I won the Crime Fiction Novel of the Year from National Independent Book Awards. And to come out of the chute with a book, I've always dreamed of being a writer and having a book out there. And those are the kind of dreams that you tend to put on a shelf sometime. And in my case, I was in retirement, and I realized, geez, I'm going to write a book. I better get busy. so to have it come out and be a pretty popular read was very, very gratifying to me.
As this is the Florida Writer Podcast for the Florida Writers Association, I want to ask, you entered in the Published Book Awards. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so you received some comments, a little bit of feedback. Were you able to use that feedback into the next book that you started working on?
Absolutely. I mean, it was really great, because the book received pretty high marks from the judges, which was terrific. But there were also some thoughts in terms of pacing, character development, and things of that nature, which I took to heart. So working on the second manuscript now, I'm really trying to I got the rubrics with me. I keep them here when I do my writing, in case I have a question. I pull them out and take a look, and try to keep me focused on how I want to structure the story, how I want to lead the characters along, or have the characters lead me along more appropriately, and just how the descriptor should be. Am I using the best word I can possibly use for this sentence? And notes like that I read in the rubrics, I felt were very, very instructive.
Well, I like that you were able to use them wisely and help to shape the next work you have. Tell me about the publishing process. You're an independent author, so you've self-published. Is that correct? Or did you do a hybrid?
Hybrid publisher, which I thought was The advantage, I thought, as opposed to self-publishing, was you have a much better chance of getting the book distributed through some stores and Goodreads and sites like that help in the distribution of the novel overall. You know, in my case, I got in several Barnes and Noble stores, and it was in a lot of independent bookstores. And I thought it gave me some credibility when I could appear and make, you know, conduct the book signings and things like that as the process unfolded. So I don't have an answer in terms of what's best. I mean, obviously there's been some out of the ballpark home runs with purely independent authors who have self-published and have done just great. And there's been plenty of stories of people who have been picked up by some of the largest publishing houses in the country and did not get the support, and the books did not do very well. So I don't know what the magic formula is. I'm happy I went the route I did, and you know, the hybrid publisher I use goes through the same process as the big houses. I mean, they get it out to Net Gallery before it's released. They send it out for reviews. They spend a great deal of time formatting, editing. The cover design is done very professionally, and they know that means a great deal, and they work on that. And so when the book is finally released, it was over a year-long process from start to finish. It was a very good product. I mean, it turns out that there's not typographical errors. The cover was really liked by people, and it was a solid product that I'm proud of. So I think it helped a lot to take that road. In my personal case, everybody's going to be different.
What was your least favorite part of publishing?
Rewriting of anything at all. I mean, if I have a weakness, it is rewriting. And we all know how important that is. I understand how important that is. I tell myself every morning how important that is. And I fall down on the job every single day. It's really, really difficult. I guess by personality, once I've finished page 27, I'm done with page 27. I don't want to see page 27 again. And I've learned I better go look at page 27 because it's probably pretty bad. And I've got to go back and do it all from scratch. And it's tough for me to do that. I like to move on and have it done. And when I finally write the end, I wish for once it was the end. And as everybody writer listening to this knows, it's not the end. There's probably not. Once it's on the shelf, you wish you'd go back and change it again and make some other changes to it. So, but for me personally, rewriting is God's curse to writers.
I'm going to agree with you there. I can remember looking at a manuscript, and you get those little. My editor would send back some red changes, and I'd be like, "No, not again! I thought I fixed that one already." But you have another work in progress, and it's also a thriller. Can you tell me a little bit about what's different about this book, or how you're working on it now that you've published one book and now that you're starting the second book? Is there a difference in how you're approaching it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that the one thing I took away from the first book is I really had difficulty determining the plot, I guess, of the story. I mean, I wasn't sure how to structure a novel. And I really had to go back more than once and do a complete rewrite because the way I told the story just wasn't working. And this time around, I spent more time up front, and I've learned a great deal going through the process with Florida Writers Association, for one, and getting the rubrics and thinking about this. So before I put pen to paper this time, I had a better idea of the way I wanted to have the story unfold. Now, you know, obviously our characters tell us differently sometimes, and I'm sensitive to that. But I think to have an overall framework of how I thought this would work was, I did a much better job this time in terms of having it structurally developed.
Well, Michael, you sound like you've been on an extraordinary journey with your writing. How could people get in touch with you?
Easiest way is by email, mj@michaeljordanbooks.com. And if they go on my website, Michael Jordan Books, and make sure you type in books, because if you type in Michael Jordan, you'll get 27 websites of a very famous basketball player. You type in www.michaeljordanbooks, it'll bring you to me. And I've got all the links there for my social media accounts, and I put out a newsletter on a regular basis. And I do try to stay in touch with readers all the time. I think that's probably the most fun aspect of the writing process. So I'm working, the second book just won the gold medal in the unpublished manuscript contest for the Florida Writers Association. And I'm trying to wrap that up and see if I can get it out there in the market as well. I'm going to keep the readers updated about that process as it moves along. So that's my goal.
Great goal. Sounds like a really good goal. But Michael, we are now going to switch to our rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
Do you have any stickers on your refrigerator?
I do not. My wife has the entire refrigerator loaded with her stickers. There's no room for my stickers, so no.
But there are stickers.
There are more stickers than you can imagine, Allison.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. And pencil, pen, or keyboard?
Keyboard.
Keyboard.
The writing is virtually illegible, so keyboard it is.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And do you wear earbuds?
I do not.
I don't either. I go for long walks with my dog, and I just put my I put podcasts on using the speaker. So anyone who's around me gets to hear what I'm listening to.
Nice.
All right, Michael Jordan, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you to the Florida Writers Association, a great group. And I really appreciate the job you did today. It was a lot of fun. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Yep, you too. You too. Everyone stay healthy. You've been listening to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Allison Nissen. Allison out.
Michael Jordan's debut novel, The Company of Demons, has won several awards, including silver in the RPLA contest. In 2020, he was awarded the gold in the Florida Writers Association Royal Palm Literary Competition unpublished thriller suspense category for his World War II thriller, A Desperate Race. In addition to writing, Michael produced law for many years in Cleveland, Ohio, and has long been selected to Best Lawyers in America and Ohio Super Lawyers. For more information about Michael Jordan, visit him at michaeljordanbooks.com. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web at floridawriters.org.